URLs are something we all interact with on a frequent basis, but very likely not something you very frequently think about. But some people do, and some people think about it a little bit too much. And that's how you get posts like this one. Strong opinions on URL design. I don't fully agree with every single point being made here, but for the most part, I think these are pretty good guidelines to go with, and a lot of this is pretty much just common sense behavior. Some of it is fairly opinionated, but I still pretty much just agree anyway. Most of my thoughts are related to culling the obsolete and implying away the superfluous. URL structure is as much part of your website's design as anything else. Treat it with the same care and attention you give your visual design and user experience. Obviously, there are some things you have absolutely no control over. For example, only certain TLDs exist, and of the ones that exist, only certain ones you're actually able to use. Some of them are limited to specific use cases or specific regions. And it is fairly difficult, especially on things like .com, .net, and the TLDs that have existed for a very long time, to get a really short domain name like this one. On .com, I don't even want to know how much a 4-letter domain is gonna cost. But for the stuff you can control, like choosing a TLD, the subdomains you have, your path, things like that, what should you and should you not be doing? And you're allowed to disagree with anything being said here, but I think they're pretty solid guidelines. Firstly, keep it simple. There is no reason for a URL to be stupidly long. Keep things short and memorable. There will be cases where people have to manually write down a URL, and then someone else will have to manually type the URL into their browser. Eliminate all possible points of failure by reducing needless complexity. As an example, let's say you're at a video game convention and they have a business card. They have a business card there, and they didn't do the sensible thing of putting a QR code on it. So if you want to get their domain, you need to then take the business card and manually write out whatever it says there. And if it's something short, like, veil.rocks here, that's short, easy to remember, pretty hard to mistake. But when we start looking at, hey, let's make an entire sentence my domain name, that's a bit much. If you want to get a short domain name, things like .rocks, things like .xyz, some of these less common ones, you still can, but anything short is naturally going to be more expensive because those are the first ones that end up being scooped up. People like to sell them off, even though it's questionably legal to be selling off domains like that, but people still do it anyway. And this isn't said here, but I think should be added. Try to avoid words that people commonly misspell, because people are going to misspell it. This is the reason why PayPal also owns like PayPay and various other similar domains, so they can make them all redirects to PayPal. YouTube does the same thing as well. You don't want people accidentally going to a completely separate website. The other reason they have it is so people can't use them for phishing scams, but having them be redirects for misspelling, also important. No capitals. In your domain name, you cannot use a capital anyway. Everything has to be lowercase, but you can use it in your path. Don't. It is hard to remember the exact capitalization of a URL, and they are case sensitive. I personally think it looks ugly, and people have to copy it out with all the relevant capitalization, which takes time, especially on phones. Also, there is a non-zero chance that some developer has flubbed the URL handling behavior and that something will go wrong somewhere. I would say that is a more than likely chance as opposed to a non-zero chance. Basically, it's just another annoying way to send a user to a 404 page. Just make it easy for people to use your website. Now, this one isn't a full never do it, but it should generally be avoided. No IDs. URLs are fantastic in that they're human readable. That is, unless you committed the atrocity of using an ID instead of a reasonable slug. You might get the slightest benefit from it being a few characters smaller, but it makes it impossible for anyone to glean the content of the page when a link to it is just slapped somewhere online, especially if embeds aren't available or your open graph values are bungled. However, there are cases where IDs make sense. This example here is about dashboards. I have a different example though. Let's say we're doing something regarding video games and you want to have the pages for the games linked to the Steam game ID. This is a consistent value. They're very easy to look up. So you want to have Marvel Rivals be 2767030, so that is part of the URL. I think in that case, it makes sense. Or it's something like an employee website and it has your roster, and in the URL, it has your employee ID that you as the employee know. Like, that's a value that you understand. Basically, if the ID is a value the user of the site could be reasonably expected to know and would provide them value, that's fine to use it. Otherwise, probably don't. No spaces. People have used spaces in URLs before. This isn't a terrible idea in and of itself, but it seems that developers really struggle to handle it nicely in implementations. It can also introduce the issue of there being no clear end to the URL, so certain content after a space can be left behind by users when copying or referencing it elsewhere. Some search engines and other user input cases get away with using spaces by encoding them with the relevant encoding, !20, but even they usually give up on this and just use plus now. And anytime you see weird encoding, it's weird encoding, and you just don't really want to see that happening unless you, for some reason, absolutely necessary. I think really the only case where it is necessary is in the case of a download link and you didn't want to rename the file, so you have the encoded name in the URL. That's the one exception I'll give to that. If you want to do space content and don't have it weirdly encoded, the way those spaces should be handled is hyphens or underscores. Our author here is not a fan of underscores though. Underscores are usually placed less ergonomically on keyboards due to their infrequent use. Hyphens are usually placed far more advantageously. Underscores also have potential for markdown muckery. The thing with underscores is I can't speak for every single keyboard layout, but typically they are on a shift layer, so that makes them more annoying to use. I don't like that. Furthermore, you often see URLs underlined, so you have an underscore directly above the underline, and depending on the font choice, this can make it unclear that there is an underscore there. Now, if you're a technical person, you probably know that's how that's structured, but remember, in a lot of cases, the people going to the site may not have that same technical background knowledge and may think it's a space, and if they're trying to put a space there, well, obviously it's not going to work. Hyphens don't have that problem unless someone is using a strike-through. And yes, you may see strike-throughs, but these are far, far less common than seeing a URL underlined. No www. Subdomains, very useful. We like subdomains, whether it's something like, oh, I want to have social.domain for my Mastodon, or chat.domain for my Jitsi, or things like that, or gitlab.domain for my GitLab. Those are all great. But if all you're doing is hosting a homepage or hosting a blog, what is the www actually adding? Because that's all it is. It's just a subdomain. It's not anything special telling the browser or anything else that something is happening here. It's literally just a subdomain for the sake of a subdomain. And in the 90s, when the World Wide Web was so exciting, yeah, you could say it adds some value there. But now it's just kind of a relic of the past, and it just makes the URL longer without really doing anything. No.html. This is a personal thing. I just dislike seeing .html stuck on the end of URLs. It adds unnecessary length and feels cheap and messy. And the same goes for .php. If people want to know, they will know. And it's pretty obvious your site is built with HTML, and unless your site is open source, using PHP, frankly, doesn't really matter. This is something that I am personally bothered by as well. Every time I see it, I think, well, did you just not configure your Nginx or whatever you're using properly? Because this is a very easy thing to do. There are hundreds, if not thousands of posts that you can just literally copy and paste to just set this up with things like Nginx or whatever else you might want to use. There's no excuse to leave this in a production build. If it's there during your development, sure, whatever. But in production, get rid of .html, get rid of .php. It's stupid. It looks like you just don't know how to manage your website. Actually, while we're here, can we just not have anything in the path when I'm on the homepage? I don't need to know its home or index or any other name you want to give it. I know this is the homepage because I went to the domain, so I assume that what the domain sends you to when you open it is the homepage. Again, like I said before, I think the only case where having an extension on the end makes sense is specifically in the case of file downloads. Any other case? No, don't do it. Don't. Stop. Bad. But if it's like, oh, I'm downloading gamecheats.exe, sure. Or if it's something.html or something.php, yeah, that's different because you're specifically wanting to know the extension of the content because you're downloading content. But if I'm going to a website, I don't care how you built the page. Trailing slash on an end. I can somewhat understand a trailing slash on a path with content within it. For example, example.com/post/ is fine if there is content within it. So if this was example.com/post and then post-title, that would be fine. Everything's good here. But if it's example.com/post-title/, what is this slash doing? Like, this is fine. Everything up until this point, fine. But what is the slash on the end here doing? Literally nothing. Just put it into the context of a file path, right? So this is the file path for where I store my files when I'm recording. /home, /Brodie, /videos, /YouTube, /to upload. Right? You know that this is the final folder in the tree. But if I put that there, it implies there's more to go. But if this is the end of the tree, why would there be more to go? Just get rid of the slash. It's not doing anything. Useless paths. I hate seeing this structure. Example.com/post/58423 or insert any ID here /post-title. What does the ID add to the URL? The user sees no benefit from it. It is presumably a post ID or the likes, but there is no reason that it should be exposed in the URL. Now, I will go back to what I said before. In the case of the user knowing what this ID is, say again, it is a Steam game ID, and this is /fixes, and another one is /where to buy, or things like that. In that case, yes, it has value. But in most cases, it doesn't. However, if this full structure is being used, where you have something here, let's say it's games, and then ID, and then a post. If I can't go directly to this right here and see all of the posts under that ID, or go to games here and see all of the games under that list, well, this is useless then, and shouldn't be there. If I can't break down a URL into its hierarchical parts, those parts serve no function. What I mean is if I go to example.com/post58473 and just see a 404 page, well, this isn't a real path, and you've just made the URL longer for no reason whatsoever. In that case, all you should do is just remove it. Get rid of it. Because there's going to be no negative impact whatsoever. And the exact same is true for date paths. So post/2025/02/24/post title. If I can't go to this path right here, to this URL right here, and see all of the posts that happened on 2025/02/24, delete it. If I can't see all of the posts that happened on 2025/02, delete it. If I can't see all the posts that happened in 2025, delete it. And just have the post be right here. Better yet, if I can't do anything with posts here, also delete that. If I can't see a list of all of the content under that path, the path serves no function. Now, in some cases, you actually can see the content under that path, and in those cases, it's fine. But when we're talking about a small blog like this one, where maybe a post is going to be made every couple of weeks, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe, even better, maybe once every couple of months. So if I go to, let's say, March, and no posts were made in March, the page will be empty. If I go to April, no posts were made, page is empty. Go to May, post was made, there's one post here. Go to June, 2 posts were made here. Then go to July, empty page again. If there's such a small amount of content there that these subpaths end up just being completely empty most of the time, they don't serve any value. I do think in the case of the year, usually there's going to be enough content for that for it to be useful. But unless we're talking about, you're the New York Times, you're the Guardian, you're some news outlet that puts out content constantly, it's very unlikely there's going to be multiple pieces in a day where you need the ability to filter down to that level, even if your site does support doing so. Think of it like your file system. If there is an empty folder inside of an empty folder inside of an empty folder inside of an empty folder, and then you get to the content, maybe those other folders didn't serve any value, and it'd be easier to just flatten out the way you handle things. In this case, it's exactly the same. Just remove the excess stuff that doesn't need to be there. Now, I just spotted this. In the path for the author's website, they do have posts. So, does this work? Okay, I'll give you that. This is exactly what I would like to see when I go to post. I thought maybe this would be something different, but no, that doesn't redirect you here. That is very nice to see. And these are things which I kind of was already doing myself. I don't think there's any of this stuff I wasn't already doing on my personal site. Granted, my site's outdated. I need to go and update some stuff and redo the entire thing. But I do think a lot of this is pretty much just, if not common sense, stuff that should be common sense. And you might disagree with some of it here, but I think it'd be pretty hard to disagree with the majority of it. But I'd like to know your thoughts down below. Do you have any major disagreements? Do you think the author is entirely wrong, or do you agree with every single thing they said? I'd like to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. If you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to LiberaPay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and you are an L.
Like this.